Meeting for December 6th, 2022, Littleton Conservation Commission. So, and welcoming everyone as we're kind of strolling in here. We're going to admit Chase. There we go. Okay, so we would like to approve the draft minutes from November 15th, 2022. Does anyone have any questions, comments, any edits?
It looks good.
If not, do we have someone that would like to make a motion to approve November 15, 2022?
I'll make a motion that the board vote to approve the meeting minutes from November 15th, 2022 as printed.
Okay. I will second that. And then Andrew, can you help with roll call if you can see who's on?
Absolutely. All right. So Brian.
Brian Crowley, aye.
Carl.
Tom Melberg, aye.
Chase.
Chase was coming in and out with the meeting, so let's carry on.
Okay. Sarah.
Sarah Seward, aye.
And Kyle, we're just voting on the meeting minutes from November 15th. Oh, you're on mute.
Yep, sorry I'm late. I did review I know I was late last week as well, but I did review the meeting minutes, so I think I can vote as an aye.
All right, and myself, aye. It's unanimous.
Okay, thank you.
With Chase as a abstain.
With Chase as a.
We still can't hear you, Chase.
Can you guys hear me now?
Oh,
Yeah.
there you are.
Hey, victory. Aye. Aye.
Okay, excellent. So unanimous. Thank you for doing that, Andrew. Okay. Let's see. So when we look at the administrative discussions, we have one addition, and that is a Lake Mattawanakie complaint that we will add and see if we can get to that. Amy, let's go ahead and kind of jump down this list for administrative discussions, starting with 100 Great Road enforcement order.
And I don't see him here, so why don't we bump him down a bit and see if he.
So we'll skip to that, and then we'll go to Erin Jade, who I know is with us, LCT Director of Land Stewardship, and welcome, Erin.
You're on mute.
You're on mute, Aaron.
You didn't understand. You couldn't read my lips. What's wrong with you? Thanks for having me. I forgot to unmute myself. So I have a little presentation. I'm going to try to go quickly through. So if I could share my screen, I have some slides, but I assume you all know why I'm here. Maybe not.
Yep. We do, but there may be someone in the gallery that doesn't. So if you want to just kind of do that brief little overview, that'd be awesome.
Okay. So I'm new to the Littleton Conservation Trust Board and the role of Land Stewardship Director. And I'm interested in educating about invasive species mitigation and its more cheerful partner, native species planting and propagation. So this is a proposal for a native plant public educational native plant preservation pollinator preservation garden at Bumblebee Park. The LCT is stewards, but is the Conservation Commission property. So that is it in a nutshell, unless I'm missing anything.
Sounds great.
Okay, great. So am I able to share my screen?
Yep.
You should be there, a green button at the bottom of your screen, hopefully.
Okay. There we go.
You have to pick one.
Mhm.
There it goes.
Okay. That's the last slide. So we'll hold on one sec. Okay. So this is a little presentation on my proposal for a pollinator preservation garden at Bumblebee Park, kind of an appropriate namesake space in my estimation. Also, I am somewhat in my backyard, and I've been the steward of this property for some time. So my goals as the Director of Land Stewardship for LCT is to engage land stewards in education and control efforts around mitigating introduced species, taking over conservation land and private yards. I'd like to educate people to feel empowered to convert any space they have control over to work toward converting that toward wildlife support by way of native plants. And I'd like to involve children and youth in stewardship to begin a junior steward program, educational family hikes, and then the pollinator wildlife support gardening, both that is both educational and obviously involving volunteer efforts. So I think most people know that native plants are declining, biodiversity is in decline, and cultivars and introduced species and invasive species are a problem. But in general, just human encroachment and development is, taking over wild spaces. And it's, it's easy to feel pretty discouraged and nihilistic about it all. But I think it is fairly empowering to learn that we can plant native species and kind of restore these systems. They are systems, whole ecological webs. So native bumblebees and the bombus species are in decline. There are certain species that have been identified to be in quite critical low numbers. And so they depend on these plants. This is a relationship that has developed over time, co-evolved with these plants to support one another. So these are systems, not just kind of singular parts. And so with public education awareness and opportunity, I'm hoping to facilitate community action. And I think of this as very benefiting on so many different levels, engaging children, being outdoors, being in nature, the therapeutic and empathetic opportunities for taking care of other species. There are so many pieces here that are beneficial. It's just such a win-win type of project. So Dr. Jagir, bee researcher at UMass Dartmouth, has been a big influence and mentor for me. He has a citizen science project called Beecology, where people can enter in these sightings and information. He's very interested in engaging the public. And this is a picture of him and his website. Amy originally told me about him, and that has been incredibly impactful. And I'm thinking a lot of you know about him, but so he talks about how in the past 2 decades, plant pollinator systems have degraded at an alarming rate. And you don't have to look at this slide, but I can share them later. Here are a couple of species of bumblebees that are threatened, critically low numbers. There's 3 particularly that he speaks of. So Fervidus vagans, this was Terricola. Those are the 3 he speaks about. And then this is a dizzying plant list where he has compiled this extremely thorough list of native plants, when they are in bloom, which species they support. So I've pored over this list for the past 1.5 years and have made it a mission to acquire as many plants and seeds from this list as I can to propagate them. This is my son and I last year. We winter sowed a lot of seeds last fall and winter, and then had a plant sale in our yard. And then we're able to donate a bunch of plants to the library slope. and we had no fun, as you can tell. And then this is us collecting seeds this year from a plant from Jagir's list that a lot of that native plant people know about. And so we're crushing and sieving and collecting these seeds. This is our plant sale we had in our yard last year. This is my collection of seeds from this year. I have about 75 and a little more species of seeds that I will be sowing this month and next month. So a lot of these seeds need to, some of them are planted in the spring, but a lot of them need to be cold stratified. They need to be planted outdoors, ideally in the winter, protected from critters, and then they will be pretty large by next June and ready to transplant by next fall. So this is my proposal for a space. I, of course, take advantage of sledding at Bumblebee is very important to all of us. So we don't want to encroach upon sledding space, but I thought Bumblebee would be great because there are some areas that are out of the way of sledding, but still have full sun. And it still has a lot of foot traffic and even can be seen from the road. So this is just one idea, but there are a few different, I'm certainly open to other spaces at Bumblebee. And I'm thinking this is a general idea of the size, but in theory, this would be pretty low maintenance because it would be packed with clusters of these plants. Ideally, I would not have it be fenced off, but ideally I would like to have good signage, a kiosk, maybe QR codes. So this could be a passive public education opportunity. And it would be installed and maintained by volunteers. So the idea is that Bumblebee Park, appropriate place for Bumblebee support. This is a public education, pollinator garden, native plants equals native insects equals native bees, while other wildlife support. So I would like to start something called the Pollinator Club Kids. I'm a homeschool mom, and I know a pretty big homeschool community of nerdy, bee-loving children who could help me with this. And then I would like to involve the LCT land stewards and any other volunteers. My idea is that this kind of garden, once it's installed, is very low maintenance at least by year 2. The seedlings would be grown by me and volunteers and would be big enough to install by next fall. Again, I would like to have ideally not a fence, but maybe a small kiosk and good labeling. And I want it to serve as a replicable prototypes for education, for other educational public gardens, such as at the library or other public spaces. This would serve declining bee and wildlife species, add beauty, add education and value to conservation land. And I have developed quite a community over the past year, looking for friends and teachers and mentors to help support and educate me. So I feel like that has augmented and really helped this project of mine. I think that is it. Okay.
That's great, Erin. Thank you for your thorough presentation. It's very, very enriching and exciting as well. Any of the commissioners or public have any questions for Erin? The other question I had, Erin, I just want to make sure that we don't have foot traffic coming through all your plantings. Would you like to have any boundaries just with rocks, just for little something bounds so we can denote where the area is, perhaps? Just looking forward to your consideration of that at some point.
Yeah, I just didn't want to have a fence that would be overgrown with invasives. So some sort of demarcation.
Something to denote the area. Yeah,
right, for sure.
Commissioners have any questions?
No questions. I think it's a great idea. And Erin, I look forward to where you ultimately want to put this. And I think what better place to put a pollinator habitat than Bumblebee Park for the bumblebees?
Thank you, Andrew. Yeah. Yep. Thank you. And yeah, I mean, I still want to help with the library project too. And there's, this is just one place and hopefully the beginning of more like it.
I think it'd be wonderful, especially if we can transcribe all your notes into something that a family can do in their backyard on perhaps even a smaller scale. So if we can have various scales, or if we have larger landowners that want to contribute, perhaps even larger as well. I like your friend right behind you too.
This is my business partner.
Hello.
Yes, the idea definitely is to make this replicable, and home yards. Doug Tallamy has a project called Homegrown National Park, where
Right, yeah.
he has people trying to, get the public involved in making their properties or whatever land they have access to part of this giant effort to convert land to wildlife support. So certainly I would like to make this an educational project that can continue to build on itself.
I think there's also would certainly be a lot of synergy with the library efforts too.
Yeah, and we were involved in the library and just paused for a little while for them to recalibrate because they're kind of in transition, but we're still invested in helping in this same way there.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much, Erin. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you,
Sarah. If
Thank
I
you.
may, I should have mentioned this. I don't know if the commission wants to vote to make Erin also the director of land stewardship for the Conservation Commission. She is for the LCT, because that's what we did with Jim. He had both powers for what they're worth, but
Sure. Do we have someone that would like to make such a motion? That's a great suggestion. Thank you.
I'll make a motion that the commission vote to appoint Erin Jade as the Director of Land Stewardship for the Conservation Properties.
Second.
I didn't know I was coming here for another job.
you're not getting out of it.
I was going to say, we didn't actually give Aaron a
Thank you.
choice on that.
All right. Well, we have a motion and it's seconded. Do we have a roll call?
Roll call vote. Carl.
Carl Malberg, aye.
Kyle.
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Ryan.
Brian Crowley, aye.
Chase.
Chase Kerbig, aye.
Sarah.
Sarah Seward, aye.
Myself, aye. It's unanimous. Congratulations.
Thank you, Erin.
Thank you, Erin.
All right. Thank you. We're gonna scoot on to our agenda. Okay.
Thank you so much. Talk to you
Yeah.
later. Bye-bye.
Next, we have emergency well replacement to Blood Road. And Amy, if you want to just speak with that briefly, this is based on the drawdown, which has since been completed.
Yeah, apparently there were two, and Dave might be able to speak to this later if you want more information. Two, if not three wells that actually went dry, one up in Westford and one in Littleton, residential house. So I worked with Jim Gareffi and actually the agent over in Westford, and the Board of Health issued an emergency certification under DEP wetlands to install a new well, which is how you can handle this. So it's been installed. Jim has done an inspection and said you can hardly even tell the well was in there. They did a fantastic job. And he has water back in his house again, rather than his neighbor's hose.
That's great. So this is just in a form of a notification. I don't think we have to vote on this. Any questions?
Just an FYI.
Okay, let's go ahead. We have two requests for certificate of compliance. The first is 11 Scott Road, Mass DEP 204-0924.
Yes, 11 Scott, that was where they were fixing some of the drainage at the house at the end, where the water just was rushing down towards the house. And it's finished up, it's stabilized, erosion control's gone, and they're extremely happy. They're going into the winter with this taken care of.
Excellent. Do we have a motion?
Was this just one house, Amy? Or was this one that had the two properties initially involved?
Yeah, the other one withdrew.
Okay. Sure, I'll make a motion that we provide a certificate of compliance for Mass CP number 2040924.
Okay.
Second.
Yep. Thank you.
Second.
Roll call.
Roll call vote. Kyle,
Kyle Maxey, aye.
Brian,
Brian Crowley, aye.
Carl,
Tom Melberg, aye.
Sarah,
Sarah Seward, aye.
Chase.
We lost your sound again, Chase.
And
Chase
myself-
Kervig, aye. Sorry
Chase,
about that.
and myself, it is unanimous.
Okay, thank you. Next is request for a certificate of compliance, 410 Great Road, Mass DEP 204-0030.
So you can tell this is a very old one that they're just trying to
That's an
clean up.
oldie. Wow.
That's an old one.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe it is ready to be certified.
Okay, motion?
Motion to issue a certificate of compliance for DEP file number, what was it, 204
30.
third? Oh, wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
very old one.
Yes, those zeros are in the right place.
Second.
All right, roll call vote. Kyle,
Kyle Maxey, aye.
Brian,
Brian Crowley, aye.
Sarah,
Sarah Seward, aye.
Chase,
Chase Kervig, aye.
Carl,
Tom Melberg, aye.
and myself, it's unanimous.
Okay, thank you. So we had requested in regards to the conversation that we had regarding Eagle Scout with some expenses. And so I'm not sure if we have anyone here that is here to address this.
Yep, Neil's here to talk about his project.
Okay.
Neil, you can
Ron.
unmute yourself and go ahead.
Yeah, so I have a short presentation prepared if that's all right with you all.
Yep, so Neil, you're breaking up, just so you know, with your internet.
Okay, I'll see what I can do about that. If it gets any better. I can join the meeting if that is all right.
Just let's give it a whirl.
Okay. So I'm going to share my screen with you all. I have some photos that I'd like to show. All right. So that's the end. All right. So I did a boardwalk at the Williams Land. Was my Eagle Scout project. I'm going to show some pictures of the project, talk about it a little bit, its impact, what I hope to accomplish with it. So this is what the land looked like before I did my project. This was obviously not a place that already had a trail. The land, I was told, is very wet in the spring and the trail is navigable. So we built a boardwalk here to hopefully bring some more people in year round to enjoy this area, which I think is beautiful. This is my project all laid out, just the basics. Here's the first phase of my project and this curve at the beginning that connects right to the trail. Right there, you can see the project being built. That's my brother standing on it to show it is a sturdy project. I hope it'll last some time and people can use it. This is more of the building process, showing the project being built and treads being put in, just all making sure that this will be able to be used for many years and not just fall apart. This is the complete finished project. In total, it is about 123 feet long, and it will connect the existing trail to a new part of the trail to make it so that the trail can be used year-round when it gets wet in the spring. And so this is what it looked like before I began my project, and this is what it looks like now. So quite a big improvement in my opinion.
Okay, so now I guess the question is, in terms of your overall project in terms of recruitment for sponsors and such? I understand you're here to seek funding from the Conservation Commission.
Yes, that is what I'm here to do. I was hoping for a donation somewhere around $649 for my project. That is one of my invoices from Littleton Lumber for materials.
So some of the commissioners may not know the whole scope of your project. Can you tell us what the overall expense was monetarily, and perhaps how much you were able to collect with donations for that?
Yeah, so with individual donations, the total scope of the project, after total cost of materials for me was $1,500, and I received $400 in personal donations from friends and family, and then I received an amount of money from the Rotary Club of Littleton. They are waiting on this meeting to be completed to give that final number on what they're willing to give, because they're looking to make me whole after whatever you guys can give.
What is the ballpark that they've expressed interest in donating to you?
I've been told a minimum of 500 would be what I could expect.
So that means that of the 1,500, you would have collected 900.
Yes, just about, yeah.
And remind us again what you're asking of the commission.
Yeah, so I would be asking for a $650 invoice to be paid.
Okay. Commissioners, questions, comments?
It's an impressive project. Oh, Carl, did you want to?
No, I was gonna say, when you first proposed this, did you know what the costs were going to be, and did you let the commission know at that time that you would be looking for to be compensated?
Yeah, so when I was first starting the project, I was talking with Amy, and we had sort of had a back and forth about potentially being able to provide funding, which later became a discrepancy. So I didn't have exact numbers at the time that we originally had spoken, but I gave them as soon as I had them.
Kyle, and just for my own knowledge, when someone is an Eagle Scout, what is the expectation that they are going to raise? Say something's $1,000. What is the expectation of your commitment that you're going to raise? What percentage of that the Scout is supposed to raise themselves?
Yeah, so the Scout is supposed to raise as much money as they possibly can, and then the group or organization that they're working with is allowed to provide funding. There's no specific requirement for how much the Scout has to raise themselves or has to seek out on their own. And there's no requirement for the organization or group to donate anything at all.
So on previous projects, Amy, Scout projects, so we've had quite a few, do we typically wind up reimbursing the Scout for materials?
Since I've been here, we have not. But I will also say this is one of the more ambitious projects that's been undertaken. I did have some initial conversations with Neil about, maybe the Conservation Commission being able to donate some money. It turns out that the town cannot do that. So what we did end up was basically donating about $1,000 worth of materials in lumber and stuff that we had in our stockpile for other boardwalk. We had it on hand, so we passed it down to Williams for the Williams boardwalk.
Was that this boardwalk you're talking about?
Yes, that was this boardwalk. Yeah.
So we've given lumber to this project?
Yes. Lumber and the tough blocks, which are the footing that it sits on.
Any idea what the value of that lumber and that hardware might be? Just ballpark?
The tough blocks were about $270. The lumber was like another 300, and then some various screws and those pieces. The initial estimate, Jim O'Neill does all the estimates. He's just fantastic in laying these out.
Yeah.
Initial estimate that Jim gave in August for this design, I'm pretty sure was about 2,700. And I know things got moved around since then. And then that number was going down a bit because there was other stuff that didn't need to be bought.
Okay.
So we've got about 500 into it so far.
We've got about 1,000 into it so far.
We've got 1,000 into it so far?
Yeah.
Not including the funds being requested.
Correct.
And the total boardwalk was estimated about 2,700.
Initially, things came down from that with some redesign and stuff also, but there was a range in there. And this was, I forget the exact lengths of what Dexter, Corey, and Tim Sturts did. They also did boardwalks. They were shorter than this, but they were able to fund.
Did we give materials to any of those other projects?
Not to either of those.
Materials?
Not to either of those. There was a boardwalk last year, actually Neil's brother, where we were able to donate some of the supporting structure to it.
Okay. Commissioners, comments, guidance?
So I'm just curious, where we stand right now, it sounds like there's a pending bill from Littleton Lumber that we would be paying as opposed to directly donating money. Is that how this?
We've already given material.
But at this point, that invoice has been paid off. So initially, and before I realized that the materials we had donated had added up to so much, I was saying, maybe we could pay the invoice and Littleton Lumber could refund the Kopp family, basically. So we did have that discussion before I realized how much materials we'd already donated.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But now it's all paid, so I'm not sure if the commission wanted to go ahead and provide some additional support, what the mechanism for that would be.
If we can get some feedback from some of the other commissioners. I don't want to cut this conversation short, but we have a lot to discuss tonight. So.
Amy, where would the funding for this come from if we paid the invoice?
It would have to come out of the budget, which might, cut us a bit short at the end of the year, but I think we'd be okay.
I guess I'm of two minds about this. One is that it's a tough lesson. You got to dot the I's, cross the T's in terms of securing the funding, and that I don't particularly want to impose the financial consequences of that on Neil. At the same time, I also don't want to put us in a position of having to sort of look back at this and say, hey, we funded a huge chunk of this project for a single scout when this is really well outside of what we've funded in the past. I guess where I'm coming down on this is that if what we did was establish a clear expectation with the scouts and, maybe even send the troop leaders and so on, sort of, here's the right way to do it. Honestly, I'd be happy to ask Neil to carry that message for us. I would be willing to support the funding piece of this, but I would essentially be asking Neil to simultaneously make sure everybody in, all of our more senior scouts in town understand what the right process should be. And that's some hard-won knowledge.
My concern is that you're setting a precedence. And so you would have to have a letter stating that it was the intent from the get-go that a significant amount was going to be donated and funded.
I understand.
I think we're
It's
doing a
messy.
disservice to all the former great scouts prior.
Yeah, I agree, Sarah. I mean, my thoughts in going for these particular elite grades that the Boy Scouts have, like an Eagle, that it's really kind of on the scout in my mind. That's part of doing these projects, is not only doing the projects, getting the people to help with the project, but also figuring out ways to fund the project. To me, that's how I look at these things. Is it's a very high award. It's the top, right? Boy Scouts. So,
Well, and I think it's extraordinary that we gave quite a bit of material as well. That's not common for us to even give material. So when Amy said, so we're over quite a bit of money for that. We do have,
Carl,
we do have a hand
Can I
raised.
respond?
Yeah.
Oh, Sarah, do you mind if I respond to Carl's comment?
Yep.
real
Oh,
quick?
great. Thank you.
Carl, I couldn't agree more. And that's particularly why the construct that I see here essentially imposes on Neil an after the fact obligation. It's not the way it should be done, but it still puts him in a position of following through on the responsibility that he's essentially trying to show as an Eagle Scout. I would not remotely be comfortable with just writing a check and making it go away, but imposing a requirement on him that is comparable to what it would have been required if he had come in, I can get my head around it anyway.
Okay. Other commissioners with questions or comments? Okay, we have a hand raised. Cheryl, do you want to go ahead and address the commission?
Thank you. This is I would wish to point out to the commission that this is an unusually large Eagle Scout project. Most Eagle Scout projects are in the range of $1,000, maybe $1,500, and are more easily handled. In this case, there was a misunderstanding. Neil thought that the Conservation Commission had promised him $1,000, and what he was actually promised was $1,000 worth of materials. And that was just a misunderstanding. He has gone out and raised funds since, but I would ask that the commission keep in mind the size of this project and how much larger it is than a normal Eagle Scout project. When my son did his Eagle Scout project, his project was widening the gates at the soccer field so that handicapped people could get through and so that people could take strollers and cribs through. The cost of that project was in the neighborhood of $600. It was a lot of work, but it was in the neighborhood of $600. A project of $2,700 is just way over the top for an Eagle Scout. And I think that's where part of the misunderstanding and concept came with the materials. He thought he thought he was double dipping with the Conservation Commission. He didn't realize that he wasn't. And that's where I think is the problem coming through. And he has raised additional funds. He came before the Rotary, and the Rotary is in a habit of giving up to $500 for these projects because they are such a value to the community, and that these boardwalks make the conservation land so much more usable. I just wanted to point these facts out to the commission. I thank you for your patience.
Thank you for that as well.
Yeah,
Commissioners?
yes, sir. Yeah, I think I agree with Cheryl. From what I've been understanding is there was some sort of a miscommunication here. And so I think that really goes back to what Chase idea is here. Whatever Neil can do to, pass this message along, educating, that's part of the project too, right? Educating not only the public, but the trooper council that he's part of. In the grand scheme of things, this is a project that was going to get paid before by us, probably, if not a scout. Am I somewhat safe in saying that?
I don't know that it would be paid by us.
Okay.
yeah.
So we do need to carry on with this. What would we like to do?
I'll make a motion that the commission vote to, is it reimburse or?
See, that's the problem, is I'm not sure how we can do
You
this.
can't, I don't think we know the answer how that's going to happen. You're gonna have to involve.
My understanding is you can pay the lumber company directly and they will reimburse the coops, the money that they spend. And that way keeps everyone happy and legal.
We would have to confirm that.
I'll just have to check with Littleton Lumber and see if we can figure out a way of doing this.
So
Yeah,
I think with that, you're going to jeopardize, because the motion that will then follow is that any future scout, the project will not be approved until it's fully funded. So this doesn't happen again. So I think you need to think of, because this is setting such a precedence, and as Cheryl stated, as all of us, it is a large endeavor, but we're changing the course going forward. And so I think
what's the problem with that requirement? I think it should be funded before it starts.
I did not say that in a bad way, Chase. I'm just saying you are changing the course. So, which
I wish my clients let me do work before it was funded. I mean,
or maybe not even fully funded, but at least the majority of the funding, because there can always be last minute expenses, but
I think that we
have a better read.
Fully funding now.
Yeah, I think we need to be careful, Amy, when we say not fully. We need to have it fully funded, because we could, extras can add up.
Yeah.
So
Right. Fully funded is very different than starting the work and then realizing, at the 11th hour that something else is needed. That they need to come in with their project in hand and saying, I have the funding to do this scope of work.
and can there still be, obviously, if the Rotary is not paid yet, it sounds as though there can be an opportunity for more solicitation. So Andrew, with your motion, it doesn't have to be for the full amount. It could be a portion of the request.
I think that's a great idea, Sarah. Any additional donations that can be had prior to the commission paying.
So we need to keep going. Someone would like to make a motion, or we can continue this.
Do we think that we need to do a little more investigating before making a motion tonight?
you could also make the motion contingent upon finance director's review and agreement that we can pay it.
I was just going to see if Littleton Lumber will go for it.
So do we want a motion now with a number set forth, and then simultaneously Amy can ask Littleton Lumber if they would follow that process? If the other alternative is that Amy then reaches out to Littleton Lumber and it's a continued discussion.
I think that's a cleaner way to do it, Sarah. I don't like the motion, the way we're trying to develop it.
Okay. So what we're hearing is that this conversation will be tabled to the next meeting, which is December 20th, of which time more funds can still be solicited, and Amy will check in with Littleton Lumber. Are we in support of that?
Yes.
Okay.
So Neil, if you have it, what I would need is the original invoice from Littleton Lumber.
Okay.
I understand it's been paid, but if I get a copy of it,
Yeah.
I need to submit something.
And so I know they haven't talked to you yet, but my understanding with Littleton Lumber is that they had verbally agreed that they would be willing to do something of this nature. So if you guys want to follow up with the rest of that and make sure that that's still okay with them and that you can do it the way you want to do it, then I think that's probably the best way to go.
Okay.
But I need to have a copy of the invoice.
Yep, she needs a copy, and so what we're basically saying is we're taking into consideration more. We're learning more about this process with Littleton Lumber, Neil, and that you'll be at the next meeting on the December 20th as a discussion item. And,
I want to, Sarah, before we drop this, I want to make it really clear who's getting the invoice from Littleton Lumber. It's my opinion, Neil, you need to go run that down and provide it to Amy.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I can send it directly to her.
Okay.
Very good, thank you.
And in the meantime, any additional fundraising, it is the holiday time, people may be feeling that they can give money. So we would like that, see if you can go a little further with that if possible.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you for
Good
having me.
evening. Thanks for everybody's input. Okay, we are going to cease on discussion items. It's 8:15, so we're quite a bit behind. We're going to go for the 7:45 notice of intent to Grist Mill, Mass DEP 204-0975, construction of an addition. Who's here to speak to this?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Matt Morrow here to speak on behalf of the applicant homeowner, Irene Taylor. Amy, if I can share my screen.
Go ahead.
And you can correct the project description before you get too far.
Project description is actually for the replacement of a septic system. So what we have is we have a 1 acre lot over a 2 Grist Mill Road, containing a single family house. You have the existing conditions. You have the house, garage, the deck, and a screened in porch. This area of the yard is fenced in. The proposed project is to put in a new leach field here with a a main going here to new septic tanks that will be installed, main coming out of the house. Here is your 50-foot line, along with your erosion protection line here. The entirety of the lot is in the 100-foot buffer zone. So the work is within the 100-foot buffer zone. So you've got a water main here that is actually going to be moved and will come out here away from the system. And a gas line that is going to be a gas main that's going to be replaced. That's essentially it for the work.
Any pictures that you want to share, Matt?
I don't have any photos of the site, no.
When was the last time you were on site?
I flagged, actually I was on next door about a month ago, but I flagged this in October.
Is two Grist Mill, is that heading out towards Great Road or the other end?
It's right off of Great Road. And you go up this way onto Grist Mill, and here is 73 Great Road, which is the corner lot between Grist Mill and Great Road. As a matter of fact, I actually flagged Great Road for Kevin Ritchie. I guess they're going to be doing a septic system there too.
That was submitted today.
Is that gas main? Is that propane or is it natural gas?
From the looks of what's coming in here, it's natural gas because it's coming off the road.
Have the flags been verified? Amy?
I have not checked them now.
Okay.
Any trees coming down, Matt?
No.
No?
No. One thing that Evan does on his plans, you see these triangles here, you know, with large circles. He usually marks out the trees that are greater than 6 inches in caliper and large. And he usually makes a note of any trees that need to come out. He will deliberately mark them on the plan so that the commission can see what's staying and what's going. In this case, what's over here is essentially lawn. There is one tree here, and it's lawn here, and here is the paved driveway right here.
So what would the commissioners like to do? Site visit or on their own? What would we like to do?
It's right around the corner from me, so I can easily get out there.
If you guys want to organize a sidewalk, I'm more than happy to walk it with you.
The house is currently occupied?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Carl, you want to facilitate setting something up in your neighborhood?
Well, when is everybody available? Do we want to do individually or as a group? Should we, should
I
we
think-
see if, should we
I
see if
think
there's any,
you start with a time that works for you and we'll see if anybody can jump in.
potentially this Friday?
Okay. What time?
Noonish?
So just so you know, Carl, I can't do this week because I'm in COVID jail currently.
Oh, it's on next week. I'm around next week. So, yeah.
Okay.
So, I'm willing to try and get out there at noon or, we typically, like Andrew likes, end of day. That's fine with me too. It just gets dark early now. That might be before Andrew's time.
Well, actually, on Fridays, I do half days from home, so I could do a 12:30, 1 o'clock kind of time if that's.
Kyle, Brian, anybody interested in doing a kind of like lunchtime on that next
Ninth.
Friday? I guess?
I mean, not the 9th, the 16th. Yeah, I'm wide open myself, so.
Yeah, I can plan for middle of the day on the 16th.
Okay. Carl, can you set a time?
You just want to shoot for noon?
Could do
Okay, so
like-
that's going to be the following Friday at noon at 2 Gristmill.
Could we do like 12:15 as like a little bit of?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Oh,
That's fine.
So Amy, if you could send out a reminder for that. So that's Friday. Okay. All right, Matt, if something comes up, just let Amy know, okay?
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep, if you could bring a colored map for that site visit, and then if anything has to be staked out, that would be great as well.
Yeah, that's no problem. I will talk to Evan in the morning about staking it out.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's carry on to the 8 p.m. discussion, Littleton Water Department, conservation restriction. I think I saw that Corey's here perhaps. Who would like to address this?
I am. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, so on November 3rd, we were finally able to have our first Cobb's Pond working group meeting. Kyle, Chase, Ivan Pagasic from the Board of Water Commissioners, and myself and Amy were present. So that was good. We were able to sit down for, I think it was a little over an hour, kind of talk through the memorandum of understanding between the Board of Water Commissioners and the Conservation Commission, talk through all the different issues in detail. Amy, I believe Ivrea sent you the marked up version of the memorandum of understanding. Were you able to distribute that to the commission?
Yeah, which has been sent around last week.
Okay, excellent. So hopefully everyone's had a chance to at least take a look at some of the line edits in there. I don't think there's anything too major in there, but we did want to take the opportunity tonight to kind of see if there's any additional feedback from the commission. I don't know if Chase or Kyle, if there's anything in particular you wanted to point out, or if you've had a chance to discuss any of this in the past couple of meetings since that working group meeting. From our end, we were supposed to have a water commissioners meeting last week to discuss some of these changes with the larger board. But unfortunately we had to reschedule that for December 14th. So I'm just here tonight to kind of hear if there's any feedback from your group that I can then report back to our board in a couple of weeks here, or next week actually, I guess.
That'd be great. Chase or Kyle, would you like to fill the commission in on any of your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll start. I think there were a lot of, I don't want to say small things that we took care of, because I think there's a lot of important things, but there was a lot of common ground in that meeting. So I'm going to focus on the places where there wasn't common ground, and it'll sound worse because I'm focusing on those. And I don't mean it to look that way, but a lot of it's centered around essentially who has the decision-making authority. And really what it came down to is we challenged Corey and the water board to think about the language essentially that says, if the water department deems a change of land use as necessary, then they will consult with us. And, or some, Corey, I'm probably butchering the language because I'm struggling to bring it up right now, but it was essentially they need to make that decision and then they need to consult us. But if we disagree, the decision rights ultimately sit with the water department. And we pushed back in Kyle and I essentially both said, we're not really comfortable with that because it doesn't establish, it puts us on separate footings, and it doesn't allow us to honor the objective of the conservation restriction that we're dealing with here. And I don't think Kyle or I, and Kyle, kick me under the table if you think I'm overstretching myself here, but I don't think we necessarily objected to the idea that if the treatment system needed to be expanded to address water taken from Cobb's Pond with additional treatment units or unit processes or something, that was generally okay with us, but we didn't want it to be a pro forma, hey, we informed the Concom and now we've checked the box. And so we pushed Corey and Ivan on a couple ideas. One was either putting it essentially on equal footing where we both have to agree, or depending on the scenario, essentially having a third party, town meeting or the select board. And I think Corey was going to take that back to his board to kick around what they might be comfortable with. But essentially what it comes down to is what is in the public interest. And we understand that there could be places where the public interest is better served by sacrificing some conservation land, but we wanted that to be made holistically rather than, essentially just with the water department. I think that was really we had some other little stuff around the edges, but that was really the primary disagreement.
Thank you. Kyle?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, Chase covered, that was the big ticket item. And I mean, so you won't really see that in the version that's been passed around to you, but the red line edit version shows the common ground stuff that we were able to agree on. A couple worded changes here and details on the trails that are existing and future trails in the area. But no, Chase very well described, the outstanding issue that we're working through.
And they do have language on that under the section called unanticipated improvements to the parcels. And Corey, correct me if I'm looking in the wrong place.
Yep.
Which says for improvements consisting of a new water treatment plant, or B, the addition of more than 5,000 square feet to an existing treatment plant, or C, both, town meeting votes to approve the project by a majority vote.
What about if they had to reroute? So what about land disturbance? You talk about a building and such, but what if we had to take a different path to get somewhere, which would alter land if they had to reroute? Does that have any bearing? Anyways, Corey, it sounds like, so you're meeting on 14th, 16th?
Yeah, on the 14th, and that point that Chase brought up is kind of the main one we need to talk over with our board.
Okay. So we meet again on the 20th. Would you want to meet with Chase or Kyle to let them know how that meeting goes? Do you want to invite them to that meeting? Do you want?
We already have one scheduled, right?
Okay.
Yeah. It was. I think Chase might have been the only one that hasn't responded.
Shockingly, yeah, I'm good. Let's schedule it. Hey, listen, he just sent the email yesterday.
That's right. So the 15th does work for you, Chase?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay, so we'll plan on meeting on the 15th again, so that should work out well in between the two meetings.
Okay. And so we'll just carry this forward to a specific time on the 20th, unless commissioners have any questions for Corey or Chase or Kyle.
At the risk of talking over a question, I do want to point you to a couple things that Corey and the water department were very happy to add. I think you'll see some red line associated with public access trails and in land use considerations there that I think are also important in the interest of sort of the conservation restriction, but those maybe got lost in highlighting the challenge here. So pay attention to the red line in the version that was circulated, because it's got, I think, some things you guys will like in it as well.
Okay,
As,
that's great news. Thank you for sharing the positive as well. Okay. All right. Thank you for joining us, Corey.
Thank you very much. Have a good
Thanks,
night.
Corey.
Okay. It's 8:30. We're going to open the 8:15 update Lake Mattawanaki, the Bendick Mac, which is at 93, 59, 49, and 1 chipmunk. Mass DEP 204-0962. Who would like to speak to that this evening?
Hi, I'm Dave Barr with Friends of Forge Pond, and Steve Haddon is also here, another board member from the Friends of Forge Pond. So we, this past summer, did a pilot project for trying out benthic mats in front of a few houses with the hope of controlling some of the nuisance plants that get in the way of swimming areas and being able to bring boats in and out from docks in a way that doesn't require, that's pretty benign environmentally. There were 4 participants in Littleton and 3 participants in Westford. We provided you with some detailed information about what happened at each site. We tried to do it each month and to keep track of the what was happening at each one. There were 3 different kinds of benthic mats used, and some of them were removed at the end of the season. Some of them were burlap mats that are intended to stay in the lake and eventually become decomposed and become part of the bottom of the lake. We found that the mats did a good job when they were put down. The mats that were taken back up allowed some plants to start growing again after they were up, but not as quickly as they would have grown if the mats hadn't been there. By the end of by this fall, there were plants coming back up in the places where the mats were taken out. All the mats were, all the non-natural materials were taken out by the beginning of October. And we also provided you with some lessons learned from the summer. Everybody that participated would like to try it again next year. There was one pretty common request by the participants that if possible, it'd be nice to have a bit larger area approved to be able to put a bit larger mats down. That would be more useful in the objectives of trying to control the plants in the recreation areas on the waterfronts.
Dave, may I ask exponentially how much larger are they looking to increase that footprint? A quarter, a double?
Yeah, so we're this summer we had 600 square foot limit on the size of the mat, and the group was asking if it could be up to 2,000, which is a little more than 3 times. There was some confusion about moving the mats. The notice of intent said that the mats could be up to 600 square feet and that they could be moved. And the order of conditions said the same thing. As we were putting the report together, there was a question of whether the intent had actually been that they could be moved, but only up to 600, so that only up to 600 square feet were covered, which was the case. So there were 3 sites that did move mats. In one site, the total area covered was within 600 square feet, and in the other 2, it was more than 600 square feet. So the request in placing a larger mat is that being able to put a bigger area down to begin with would allow the whole area that's going to be covered to be controlling plants right from the beginning of the season rather than moving them, and maybe it's July or August when plants are starting to be controlled in some of the areas. And then also, if the participants were allowed to have a larger, put down larger mats, the understanding would be that in no case would moving the mats cover more than that 2,000 square foot altogether over the course of the summer.
Okay, that's very interesting. Thank you. Commissioners have any questions, comments?
I do have a couple of quick questions, Dave. Looking through the report, and there's a few notes at different locations, actually, that are multiple locations where the vegetation growth appeared to be thicker, denser, and larger than observed in the past. Do you know if there's a reason behind that? For the placement of the mats creating denser vegetation outside of that area, or was it water level concerns that created the?
No, that was generally the experience around the lake this summer, that there was a lot of plant vegetation, that things were a little, plant growth was heavier and denser than in the past. And we think it's because of the drought, so that the water level was lower than usual this summer, by quite a bit. In fact, some of you are aware that we're participating in the Stony Brook Flow Restoration Project, which does some releases from Forge Pond over the summer to try to keep a minimal flow in Stony Brook downstream of Forge Pond, Lake Mattawanakee. And this summer they started it, but then after a couple of weeks they stopped it because the lake was so low. So having low water levels in the lake means that more of the area of the lake has enough sunlight to grow plants, and the places where they are normally growing, there's more sunlight that gets down to the bottom and throughout the littoral zone, because the water's shallower, and so there was more plant growth. So that was not just noticed near the benthic mats, but generally noticed around the lake in most places.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. So you have the burlap mats, which can potentially stay and become part of the. I have to apologize. I didn't read the report, so I'm hoping my questions are clear.
It's all good.
So you have the burlap mats, which can potentially stay, become part of the bottom. The other mats are removed at the end of the recreational year.
Mm-hmm.
Are they exposed because of low water when they're removed, or are they still in a certain depth of water?
You mean the burlap mats?
No, there's two types of mats, right?
Yeah. So the polyethylene mats were put down, were anchored down, and then they, by the end of the summer, they're removed and taken out of the water, and the anchors are taken out of the water. Anything that's not natural is removed from the lake before by the end of September, and then they'd be used again next summer. The burlap mats are intended to be put in once and just left there, and the references that we have found indicate that they should be serving as a benthic mat for 3 or 4 years, and so we're interested in seeing how long is it before they become not as effective in that way. So they're left in place, and everything that's used with the burlap mats are biodegradable. So they were held down with bags of stones, pea gravel, and both the mats and the bags are biodegradable burlap and jute, and the ropes or the twine that was used to tie them was also biodegradable.
So the non-burlap ones, was there a lot of silt material that had gathered on the top?
In all cases, there was some silt that gathered on the top, burlap as well as the others. There was, I think I would say there's less silt on the polyethylene tarps mats because they tended to float up a little bit, come off the bottom, and so as the waves would come by, they would sort of ripple more, and that action would kind of tend to move silt off of them.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Amy, are we looking, is this purely an update? Anything that we need to do beyond this?
Well, it was certainly the update as you guys had requested, but it sounds like there's also an ask if the coverage can be increased.
Well, the intention is the request is if the mats could be up to 2,000 square feet, but no area at the waterfront greater than 2,000 square feet would be covered in the season. So if you put down a 2,000 foot mat, you wouldn't move it.
So commissioners, would we like to entertain that? Do we want to think about that and carry forth for another meeting? If so, does someone would like to make a proposal, or do we want to think about it? This is new information coming in.
I would like to think about it. It's 3 times, it's a very large increase.
So, Dave, with my suggestion, we'd like to, if possible, just let everyone think about it a little bit and then carry forth to another meeting, either the 20th or January 3rd. That way the commissioners can ponder that.
Sure. At the end of our, can I just make one last statement about that?
Sure.
At the end of the summary, where we talked about, looking ahead to next year, we point out that if all 7 sites, I don't know that all 7 sites would use mats that large. I don't think they would. I don't think we would use that big a mat coverage at our site. But if all 7 sites did do that, that would be amount to 1/6 of 1% of the lake area. And the state recommendations in the general environmental impact report on eutrophication is that benthic mats not cover more than 10% of the lake area. So we're at about 1/60th of that. And, we've talked about how ultimately we would like to, if the pilot project works out okay, and develop some kind of umbrella process, ideally where, others around the lake could, maybe participate in something like this without having to go through a full notice of intent process and the expense and such. And so just to kind of scale it up, if say 1/4 of the waterfronts on the lake were doing that and it was 2,000 square feet, that would still be just over 0.5% of lake area.
Thank you. I appreciate you sharing with us and educating us to those statistics as well. Thank you.
Right.
So I will let you communicate with Amy off meeting to which date might work best for you all going forward. Thank you for joining us. And thank you for your update.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dave.
Okay, 8:45, we're going to go to the 8:20, which is request for extension, Lake Mattawanakie drawdown. Mass DEP 204-0872. It expires January 23rd of the upcoming year. It seems right around the corner. Do we have a conversation or motion, or what would we like to do, commissioners?
Can I mention something?
Absolutely.
We sent you the our narrative on the request for the extension, as well as the Form 7. We're also working with Westford on this, as we are with the benthic mats. And one point is that part of the process of requesting extension is to submit the request to the Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program at the state DEP. And we are in the process of doing that. We've been communicating with them, and they have quite a few documents that they need, and we're getting those together, as well as we have to get sign off from the dam owner for their form, and we're kind of waiting on that with him. So we are still in the process of getting that to National Heritage, and then we'll need to hear back from them at some point. I have another thing, but if you have some questions or comments or discussion before I get to that, or if you want me to go ahead.
I was going to suggest that the commission might want to hold off on issuing the extension until Natural Heritage gets a little further along. I think right now you're covered because you've already applied for the extension.
Right.
So if this doesn't get signed off till after January 10th, whatever, I think that's fine.
Okay.
But you might want to get a little further with some of the paperwork.
Yeah. So I think in the element of time, I think that's fine that we would just carry it on a little bit further down. Yes, go ahead.
I mentioned one. So we recently realized that there was a reason why the National Heritage request or asked us to draw down a bit less than we had requested in the notice of intent, and the reason was that we had our outlet channel needed to be dredged or opened up a bit before, in order to be able to get more than they gave us the approval for last fall, last winter, with funding from Littleton and from Westford. We did that. So as part of I haven't got a chance to talk to you about this, Amy. We just realized it going through their last communications from 2018. We thought we would, because it's going to be another 3 years under this new order of conditions, we thought we would ask for a slightly deeper drawdown, less than a foot more, which would bring us down to the level at the invert of the outlet structure, where the drawdown water, where the flow goes. We've got stop logs in front of this outlet structure, and so instead of a 3.6 foot drawdown, which we are constrained to now, we're thinking of asking for a 4.5. So just we'll see what they say. We'll see what you think about that too. But that wasn't in the
Right. Yeah.
report
So
they gave you, so I wanted to give you a heads up on that.
Yeah, and that's appreciated. Sounds like there's a lot more time for discussion coming up for that. So and that's good for Amy to know as well. Okay, we're going to carry on. We appreciate your input and
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
So our 8:30 notice of intent has been postponed. We're going to go ahead and open the 8:45 continued public hearing, notice of intent, 32 Lake Warren Drive, which is Mass DEP with no defined number at this time. repair and regrade eroding slope and reset granite steps. Who's here to speak to that?
Nobody. Let me make
Wow.
sure he didn't,
Is that Bartlett's project?
yeah, it's Bartlett. I mean, he did submit the, additional information about extending the, erosion controls up a little bit. And there is not a DEP number on this yet anyway.
Okay.
So I don't know if there's any other concerns you want me to pass on to him, or I assume continue to the 20th.
I would continue for sure. Okay. All right. With that continuance, let's go back to our discussion items. We are presently at DCR Mass Trails Grant and CISMA Grant.
This is where it's dangerous that not only do I have more help in the office, we've only also been meeting every 3 weeks. So I got like free time to get myself into trouble. So a couple grants, the DCR Mass Trails Grant is opening. It's due February 1st. I was thinking of going after an ADA trail, which has kind of been on our list for a long time and haven't had the capacity to do it yet. So this could be the year. I was thinking either at Long Lake at the extension of Colonial. So it'd be a straight shot pretty much back to the lake with a sort of observation platform on the shore. I don't want to get into the water because I need chapter 91, but we can start on the shore. And the other possibility is at Cloverdale to get a ADA trail from the parking lot down to the boardwalk, which is ADA, and getting a wider area in the middle of the boardwalk also as a sitting area.
Okay.
So I've been out there with Green International. They're going to, start helping to work up some cost estimates. Highway said they are probably on board for helping with some of the construction. It's a matching grant. And I'm actually trying to talk to the disability committee. Unless someone feels strong about one or the other of those, I was thinking maybe they could just choose which one makes sense for them. They're pretty different and they'd both be pretty nice. So
I think it's great to have their involvement, their partnership, and that would be great.
Absolutely.
And so the other piece of that is I was thinking about going to the CPC to see if they would be, it's a $60,000 grant, a reimbursement grant, to see if at a minimum, if CPC would be willing to cover that $60,000, but get reimbursed. And then I'd have to work out where I'm getting the other 20% match, which might be an additional ask from CPC or from Highway or from volunteers building the observation platform, something along those lines.
Andrew, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's very doable. I can't speak for the whole CPC about us applying for the funding, getting the grant, and reimbursing the CPC. I think as a standalone project, this would be great anyway. To have an ADA accessible trail would be amazing at either the Tourney Loop or at Cloverdale. So it's definitely worth a shot to approach the CPC. And we can do it informally to start at the January meeting, just to see if members would be amenable to that. But even if it wasn't something that we could have reimbursed, I think just straight up applying for CPA funding would be a great idea regardless to get this done. Because I think in the last couple of open space and recreation plans, this has been something that's been cited as a necessity for the town, but yeah, it's definitely worth looking into. So we could put this on the next CPC agenda and maybe put together an eligibility request and go from there.
Yeah, so that'd be great. Because, but also, I was wondering if it's worth an ask of CPC for a boardwalk. There's kind of two that have risen to the top. One is what's Boardwalk 1 at Town Forest, which is the kind of half their boardwalk right off of Harwood. It's just planks laid down. Basically, it was to get the Eagle Scouts out so they do their trail building. And that would be a long boardwalk. It has been permitted, but just never built. And Jim thinks that would probably be in the general area of $10,000-15,000, including some labor. The other option would be at Hartwell. If you park at Hartwell and you go out just a little bit and take the first left in front of those somewhat new houses, there's that almost 100-foot really muddy area that just makes the back trails inaccessible when that trail is inaccessible.
Yeah, people had tried to reroute that area too, I think, right? And even that got.
It just goes into wetlands the whole way. So it's
That's why I think getting something through there would be very beneficial, because people have tried to make multiple trails through there now and they all just flood out.
Yeah, as soon as you start trampling it, it's tough. And this goes back to, that is something that could be an Eagle Scout project. Would be on the slightly more expensive side. Jim's guessing $1,000 to $2,000 because it is a little bit long. So it's really just a question of whether or not it's worth asking CPC for that also.
I think it's definitely.
Worth an ask.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ask all you want, Amy.
I mean, the CPAC is very receptive usually to boardwalk projects. The last couple that you've submitted, everybody's been very excited about. So I think, I mean, if it's going to be more of a larger ticket item, as we've seen tonight, maybe it'd be worth just pursuing the funding, getting that squared away for this particular project.
Yeah,
so our minutes here are going to reflect that Andrew approved on behalf of the CPC.
Because that's how CPC rolls. Well, I think I probably would actually go for the bigger ticket item, because I think the Hartwell one I can probably get out of the budget for 2023. I did have some money in there for boardwalks, kind of generically, which is in the couple $1,000 range. That the $10,000 range is way outside. It is my entire budget. So I can put together some eligibility requests, so at least we have that paperwork going, and I'll talk to you some more, Andrew, about it.
That'd be great. I don't know when we have to have everything submitted by for the warrant for the springtime meeting, but we should have plenty of time. I can't imagine it's not until maybe like mid-February, late February-ish.
There's never plenty of time.
No, that's true.
Well, the grant application is due February 1st.
Yeah.
So we don't need the funding locked in, but it would certainly need to get down that road.
That's good. I think we follow your strategy with that. Okay.
And the other one, just to let you know, is I am preparing a grant to SISMA, the Cooperative Invasive Species Management Area, I think, organization with SVT, for some money to tackle the porcelain berry and mile a minute near the Bonsai West area. I told Rick I was happy to prepare the grant for him, but LCT is going to have to manage it because it's private property. It's not conservation. So,
okay.
So Amy, can I just have a quick clarification? Sorry, Sarah.
Yep, go ahead.
On the CPC, we're just asking them to fund up front the money.
Yep.
And get reimbursed, right?
Correct. And then she's got to still find 20%.
Yeah, 20%. So, and then we're going to potentially ask the CPC for the 20%. Is that the plan?
Worst case as well. I'm sure we wouldn't need the whole 20%. I am hoping to get aggregate to donate the gravel we would need. This would be a stone dust with a gravel base. And then we have an observation platform kind of thing to build at either end, which volunteers could do. And DPW can do at least part of the construction. So my preference would be not to ask CPC for any money for it. I'm going to have to see how it plays out.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So I think we follow you with that. Okay. Let's carry on. Great Road, Robinson Road sidewalk.
Yeah, they did flag the trees to remain, or the flags to move. I can't remember which ones they flagged.
Do we have access on that property?
They would prefer to be there with us. Or at least if we can get a group, then I can probably talk them to letting other people wander in there. But
did those of you that next Friday that are kind of the afternoon crew anyway, that if you guys are fast on Great Road, you could just zip over there and look at those trees. I don't think you'll be very long on Great Road. It's so small. And then go over here to Robinson.
Seems reasonable.
Okay. And then I think those of us that can't make it on that Friday would try and do a little bit of a drive-by. That would be great. Okay. We do have we received a complaint on Mattawanaki. And Amy, I think if I understand correctly, it's a dock that has the styrofoam that has broken loose and kind of come unhinged and blowing all over the water, and where we don't have a harbor master and it's not really DEP's gig. The Mattawanaki Association is looking to us to try and see if there's any feedback we can give. So it's an interesting predicament. So
The association doesn't have any sort of authority on that?
I don't think, nope.
Isn't
No.
Tim the harbor master though for the town?
We don't have a harbor. The harbor master is basically the town manager.
But I think
So
Tim
send
was-
him after.
I think he was appointed as harbor master though, if I'm not mistaken.
The town manager?
No, Tim from Park and Rec.
That never happened.
Yeah, I don't think it did, Andrew. No.
Oh.
So let's follow the
He
process.
took the
here.
courses or whatever and stuff, but yeah.
It's a gray area. It's not really Board of Health. It's not DEP. So thoughts?
I called the environmental police and they kind of laughed at me.
So what you could do to help support the association is draft a letter acknowledging that there has been this nuisance and that we would ask you to kind of clean it up within a few days. If not, we can try and take it a little bit further. I'm a little curious on jurisdiction, but
So is the nuisance, that this thing is just breaking apart, or that it's just floating around?
Yeah, no, it is the styrofoam floats that's breaking
Yeah.
apart. So the styrofoam's floating around.
Also, the styrofoam's floating
Yeah,
all over.
yeah, the dock is in place, is staying in place.
Okay, gotcha.
So two questions. One, I imagine they've contacted the owner about this, and really the owner isn't.
Correct.
willing to
The
take care of
owner, the owner told the abutter to go talk to his lawyer.
Right.
And
So, yeah.
I talked to the owner who seemed receptive, but hasn't done anything.
So you had two questions.
Yeah, since DEP has no jurisdiction over. I mean, I guess it's not a chemical release, but isn't it some sort of a release?
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I mean, is it altering a wetland? If someone was dumping oil, we'd say yes, probably.
I mean, you're still putting a contaminant of concern. It's styrene. It's
Right, but
styrofoam's not great stuff.
Yeah, and we realize how busy they are too. So I think what we're trying to do is seek input from all of you. What course you'd like to do?
So the owner is aware of the situation and isn't willing to do something about it, I'm assuming?
Correct. Let's assume that. Correct.
It sounds like they don't want to do anything unless they legally have to.
Correct.
And even then, maybe not, but.
We're being vague, so that's why we're seeking the information.
It's a little hard to see that this is the styrofoam along the edge
Oh, God.
as an example.
Is that floated up away from where it belongs? Like how
Yeah,
far?
this is the dock, and I think the dock is partially on barrels, but the other part is on the styrofoam floats, and it's those floats that are breaking apart.
Oh,
And
look, so the styrofoam is still in place under the dock. It's just breaking apart.
as well as breaking up, yes.
until it's along the edge of the lake.
Right.
So
Oh, this
I mean,
is
it's significant when you think of the waterfowl and the ingestion
Absolutely.
of any of those, and so
yeah, it's a wildlife concern too with the size of that. That's, I mean,
So, how do you force a landowner to replace the styrofoam.
Well,
I didn't care to replace it. I wanted to clean it up.
yeah, no, I think it's more about cleanup too.
Yeah.
So
I don't care if it replaces it. I'd say don't replace it with styrofoam, but you got to clean it up before you worry about replacing anything.
Well, isn't it gonna keep breaking down?
right. So
Yeah, especially when stuff starts to freeze this winter, that thing's gonna fall apart.
Yeah, I think in
Exactly.
particular,
And I think
when the drawdown comes down, the stuff hits the ground and starts breaking up.
So, Amy, have we engaged town council on this? I mean,
right. So
honestly, I think that's the next step. I'd
Yeah,
rather
I
see
agree.
a letter from
Could-
town council's office invoking whatever authority is appropriate, whether that's the Board of Health or the Conservation Commission or both, or doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, I think it has to be
There's
much
got to
more
be
firm.
multiple ones.
Yeah.
So why don't we do this? I would like to have you all make a motion to have Amy enact on this, and which would allow her, if say town council says it's Board of Health, or if it is something that we can act on, you would then allow her to do so based on guidance.
Which would
I
be an
move-
enforcement order.
I move to authorize a conservation agent to issue an enforcement order or otherwise negotiate or work with town council to resolve or provide notice to the property owner at, what's the address?
07 Mattawanakee,
At 7 Mattawanakee regarding this,
107.
107 Mattawanakee.
Does that sound
regarding
familiar?
the
Okay.
styrofoam.
So do we have a second on that?
Second,
Second, yeah.
All right, roll call vote. Carl,
Carl Melberg, aye.
Kyle,
Maxfield, aye.
Brian,
Brian Crowley, aye.
Chase,
Chase Gerbig, guy.
Sarah,
Sarah Seward, aye.
myself, I. It's unanimous.
Okay. All right, let's go back through. I know we jumped around a little bit. I think that was the only administrative action that we had added to the discussions. Next meeting is the 20th, and then January 3rd. We have a site walk for the following Friday with Matt, and then try and see if you can do the 2. Anything else? Okay.
I missed the 100 Great Road enforcement order. Did you just mention that? Sorry.
No. No,
Yeah,
Sean.
you should probably talk about that a little bit. Andrew and I went out there and took a look at it. My understanding, and obviously he didn't come in tonight, is the owner doesn't want to put up the boulders. Or he doesn't see the reason for putting up the boulders.
Right.
Yeah, and the stone wall that's currently out there, I thought it was a little higher, but it's like a very low set wall that's apart right now. So, I mean, at a minimum, maybe he could rebuild that a little higher, but it's not as straightforward as I had originally thought.
Okay. So I think, enough people have been out there. You all have spent a lot of time and been very diligent about going forth with this and giving suggestions. So you have to make a decision, stand what you've, notified, or make an amendment. Thoughts?
I don't hear any motions for amendments.
Right. So Amy, I think to go back and say that we feel we're on solid ground with our rocks.
Yeah, as it were. And I will, rather than doing it by email, I'll send him a letter and get a little formal about it.
Okay. It is 9:10 p.m. Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote. Kyle,
Maxfield, aye.
Sarah,
Sarah Seward, aye.
Carl,
Carl Melberg, aye.
Chase,
Chase Gerbig, guy.
Brian,
Brian Crowley, aye.
and myself, I. It's unanimous.